Hi, I am Allison, and this is Team Santiago. Hans said 2 days ago that communication is a basic need. Today, we're going to talk to you about how two solutions in healthcare and energy can make this need a reality. We've come up with two solutions for these two sectors. In the energy sector, what we envision is that Ericsson implement an energy savings model that begins at the household level and that yields savings for all of the players involved in the system. On the healthcare side, what we would like to see Ericsson do is to create an interconnected network that connects all of the players in that ecosystem. And now, Ricardo is going to talk to you about our solution in the energy sector.
So allow me to elaborate on the current trends in the energy sector. We know that GE, we know that Cisco, we know that IBM, they're actively working on building resilient grids and smart meters to increase the energy efficiency. What do we mean by that? Well, we do have regional grids that in turn work, control, and administrate central grids in a cell-like structure. And these cells, in turn, control the buildings, which of course will be connected to a series of household appliances. Now, this vision advocates a top-down approach, which involves centralized network operation center that will control all the power stations all the way down to micromanaging the appliances at home. However, we don't see Ericsson following this approach, this current trend. Instead, we see Ericsson following a bottom-up approach. What do we mean by that? We see the home users playing a different role. In this scheme, we see them as the key players generating the energy savings. We'll elaborate on that. We also see that these network-enabled appliances will become the tool to generate said savings. We also see that network operators playing a very important role here, because they will be the gateway to monitor and control the appliances. And finally, the utility companies, which will set the pace of energy consumption in terms of demand response. How are they going to do this? Through an energy management platform, which will determine the best response to the utilities requirements. Now, allow me to illustrate the operational flow. These home appliances will include a network identity card, which will be supplied by ST Ericsson, the joint venture, which will allow us to communicate seamlessly to the mobile operators. Now, through these communications here, we'll see a link to ENERNAG, which we suggest establishing a strategic alliance, which Victor will later elaborate on why do we think ENERNAG is our ideal partner for managing this energy platform. Now, ENERNAG will establish the relationship with utility companies, and when these trigger the need for a demand response in terms of peak demand, in terms of reducing consumption, ENERNAG will be able to directly control the home appliances devices, whether it's a fridge, a dishwasher, or a dryer. Now, we know that privacy is an utmost concern, a serious concern for everyone involved. And this is why the users will not assume a passive role. They will also act as mobile users, and they will be able to set their own energy profile to determine how their own appliances will behave when they receive such a request from ENERNAG or the utility companies. Now, who provides value and who captures value in this model? And that's what Victor will elaborate next.
Well, thank you. Ricardo has just talked a bit about how is this going to work from the operational standpoint. What I'm going to try to do here is to explain how each of the actors is getting and providing value in this chain. So let me just start with Ericsson. Ericsson was going to work with the original equipment manufacturers, which is the people who are making the dishwashers, the refrigerators and stuff. And they're going to work in two ways, and both involve technology. First, they're going to provide the chips, the network identity cards that Ricardo talked about, and also they're going to develop jointly the platform that's going to make it possible for the appliances to connect to the phones of the people and to actually get this network connection and identify which appliance belongs to which people. So what they will get is this technology development, and in return, well, the OEMs are going to pay for the revenue in terms of the chips. Now, original equipment manufacturers are going to sell this to the users, which is the regular people, and they're going to sell them based on the argument of convenience. By convenience, we mean here that the users are going to have the possibility now to get a higher degree of control on when their appliances are being used at. For example, we know that users sometimes pay their bills in differentiated tariffs, like there's this peak and off-peak method. So what they can do is to actually get stuff like their drying machine or their washing machine to work on the off-peak hours and to be able to monitor and control this remotely. Not only Enernoc can do this, also the users can have like this sort of override, which can be sold also as the convenience argument. And well, in return, the users are going to pay the OEMs for these appliances. And here's where the thing gets interesting, because now users are going to have these appliances in their homes, and these appliances are going to connect to the wireless network, and for that we need the carriers. Now the carriers, we're proposing that they are going to give free data access to these appliances, and we're going to elaborate a little bit on why do we think this is going to work. But first of all, what's going to happen is this is a fairly low bandwidth requirements. It's really just a monitoring devices and the data, not really video or anything heavy. So it's not really consuming their installed infrastructure, and they're going to get some value afterwards. So what's going to happen here is that this is how we're going to enable these devices to be connected to the users, and these guys are going to actually be able to control how they use their appliances and thus save energy. Now, these energy savings are going to go on one hand to users and on the other hand to the utility companies. The utility companies also want to save energy because it's important to them in terms of, first, operational expenditures in the generation of energy. That's one. And the second is that it allows them to have a more predictable energy flow, because it can allow them to flatten a little of the use capacity and reduce their danger or the threat of power shortages. So these guys are also going to get some strong savings. And what we're proposing is that they're going to split the savings between them, of course, and also carry some of the savings to the carriers, so they're going to pay them, and this is how they're going to get their money back from this. And finally, they're going to hand over some of the savings to Enernoc, which is what they already are doing, so there's like business as usual for them. And finally, what we're going to propose here is that we're going to have a revenue sharing agreement with Enernoc. So this is how the players are playing out. Now, moving on to the competitive landscape, we have categorized them in three. So basically, here we have the basic competitors, which are the Converge, Ensco, and Airtron, which are another energy-saving companies. We also have the HVAC heavyweights, Siemens and Honeywells of the world, who also have this kind of project. And finally, this is a very important one, the industry consolidation. What's happening is that energy suppliers are merging and acquiring energy-saving companies. So they create that single entity that can provide the energy-saving solutions, and this is something we gotta watch closely. Now, finally, we mentioned that we want to work with Enernoc, so we just want to share with you some of the credentials of this company. They're basically, well, there's an industry-approved energy provider. They have 4.5 gigawatt already under their administration. They are working currently with more than 100 utility companies. They're state-of-the-art, and in 2009, in fact, they were awarded with this Smart Grid Product of the Year. So yeah, we believe this makes for a very solid business partner. Well, finally, we want to go a little into the roadmap, how this can be implemented. So the first thing I want to say here and share with you is how big this opportunity is. So we have here this curve, which is basically a supply and consumption of energy kind of plot. We have like the average demand, the total capacity of the, let's say, the plant. And what we are seeing here, right here, it's a very interesting stuff. And what we're seeing here is this capacity is pretty much never used. In fact, it's only used 1% of the time. That means 3 days in a year. So the rest, 362, is basically installations that are not being used. So this 1% can be quantified as 250 billion of worldwide infrastructure in terms of power generation that is basically sitting there, doing nothing, 362 days of the year. This is money that, unfortunately, has already been lost because it's already there in the form of plants. But 20 billion out of this can be regained in the form of energy savings every year. And this is on top of the chip sales, which is the other business from ST Ericsson. Now, going a little into the executional roadmap for pursuing this opportunity, basically, we believe this can start in 2012, setting up the alliances with the energy saving, the OEMs, and the carriers. In 2013, we can begin the product development. In 2014, the FMA, and in 2015, the national launch. And finally, there's some areas where we think shareholders' value is met. Well, here we would like to highlight the improvement in JVs because of the increased revenues for ST Ericsson, and also the continuous process improvement because we are actually revolutionizing this part. Now, Andres is going to talk to us a bit about the healthcare sector.
Thank you. Okay, first I want to spend a little time just saying why this is an interesting market. So in the US, 80% of people who use a cell phone, from that 80%, 17% use their cell phone to look at medical information. The problem with this is that there is no interoperability. The market is really fragmented. And this is amazing because actually in the most developed countries, the 10% of the GDP goes to the healthcare sector, which is actually one of the world's largest and fastest growing industries. So right now, what we try to do is we try to map how the mobile medical industry is right now, and we try to do it as simple as possible, and this is what we got. So as you can see, we have Google there, we have Ericsson, there's patients, there's doctors, there's databases. Basically, it's a mess. We have a bunch of independent developers who are making all of these wireless medical devices. They're making mobile apps, but there's no integration. So what we see is an ecosystem of interconnected devices and databases that provide real-time information to patients, doctors, government, and insurance companies. This model has to be scalable and has to be able to progress over time as new technology arises. So this is what we came up with. I'm going to start here with the databases. These databases are going to contain all the patient data from your name, your birthday, to everything that has to do with medicine. If you take an X-ray, a CAT scan, anything that you do is going to be stored in these databases. These databases are going to use the HL7 protocol, which is a non-profit open source organization, which has made a protocol for healthcare databases. All of this is going to be shared using a cloud. So, and the mobile operator, which is our client, and together with Akamai, is going to provide access to these databases for patients and for doctors. Now, how are the patients and doctors going to access the databases? Through mobile applications. So our vision here is to create a medical app store following the model that Apple has done with his App Store and that has been very successful. So what we want to do is completely mimic that. We're going to get together with Akamai. Well, we're actually already together with Akamai, but together with them, with National Instruments and with HL7, we're going to develop a software development kit that's going to allow the developers to create all these new applications that are going to be compatible with this new the system that we showed you in the previous slide. Now, what we want to make sure is that since we're dealing with people's lives and with people's privacy, there needs to be a lot of quality. So we're getting an alliance with the mHealth Alliance, which is going to be a non-government organization that's going to govern all of this new infrastructure. So a developer makes an app, mHealth Alliance approves the app, and it goes into the medical app store. So how does that fit in this? this is the way that patients and doctors access all of the data. Next. Okay, so as I said, security and quality are of extreme importance. So we have 4 major players in this connection and on this system. First, the network operators. Network operators need to have extreme network robustness and dependability. This is because we're going to have applications like CAT scan rendering or X-ray viewing that are going to require very high bandwidth. And this is where Ericsson comes in, because with our new alliance with Akamai, we are going to be able to provide our clients with the most network robust, the most efficient possible way of giving this to the users. And we're going to have the mHealth Alliance give us like a seal of approval for our clients. It's the same for databases. Anybody that wants to develop a database to work with this system is going to have to get the approval from the mHealth Alliance. The same from the apps. They're going to make sure there's quality, that it covers all the FDA, government and compliance rules, and that it's interoperable. And on the mobile devices, we want to emphasize on patient safety and that it is thoroughly tested by mHealth Alliance, which will approve the devices. Now, Alison's going to talk to you about the competitive landscape in this sector.
Because they're very strong in the enterprise market and provide very good solutions. Andres already talked to you about some of our key partners, HL7, which will enable our databases to communicate with each other. That is a very, very important part of this puzzle. The mHealth Alliance, which will allow us to certify the different actors in the system, and National Instruments, which is the leader in virtual instrumentation, and this is key for the developers in the system. As far as how we're going to execute on this plan, we've contemplated a five-year roadmap that takes into account our alliances with the different players in the model and constant interaction with the developers in the model. So, based on the 2 solutions that we've just presented to you, we believe that we can bring Ericsson new revenue streams, which will help it to continue to be a game changer in the industry. As Hans said, communication is a basic human need. Thank you, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Could you explain the value chain, the money flow in the healthcare example? I'm not sure I really understood that.
Yes. Actually, we have 2 sources of revenue in the healthcare area. If you could please go to that slide. Okay, so the first source of revenue is the SDK. We're going to follow Apple's model. We're going to sell this SDK to developers as a subscription. So a developer will pay to have access to the SDK and all of the update that comes along, and this will give them the right to freely submit their applications to the mHealth Alliance for approval. Once that they are approved, they're going to go into the App Store, and we're going to share revenue from app sales with the developers. So that's exactly following Apple's model. And if you could go, please, to the next slide. And, well, the other, which is, I guess, more obvious source of revenue is the mobile operators. Since we are going to be the only company that has an alliance right now with a player like Akamai that can give us a better network and a more efficient way of bringing the data to our users, we are going to be the choice provider of solutions for operators and for our clients, because they're going to want to give these solutions to their clients.
Okay, I have a question, so thank you for a good presentation. So in relation to, yes, the vision for 2015, this is the right slide, and the next one, I'm trying to make sure I understand the role that you see Ericsson playing. What I'm what this information is conveyed to me is you see Ericsson working with a mobile operator, which is kind of the status quo, and you see also Ericsson in the SDK space. Can you elaborate on a comprehensive proposal for Ericsson in this healthcare vertical?
Well, the main idea here is that, as you probably remember our messy diagram at the beginning, so what we want to do is we want Ericsson to be a major player in the evolution of this industry. So this is gonna showcase Ericsson's capabilities, and we're gonna put Ericsson out in the world for everybody to see that we were the ones who revolutionized these industries. And we are going to be the ones that are providing the better solutions to our mobile operators, right? So suppose that a doctor needs to choose, a doctor buys an iPad, and he's going to use this iPad to access the databases. So he's going to need to get a contract with one of the service providers to actually connect into the cloud, right? So when it comes the time to choose, there's going to be an operator that will have the mHealth Alliance seal, which is our client. And then there's going to be another operator which doesn't, because they're not a client and they don't have our technology behind them. So we are going to be, our clients are going to be the operators of choice for all of these solutions. So that's why Ericsson is a very big player in this market.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for a really great presentation. I really like the flow that you have in here. It makes it really easy to understand. My question is with regard to the 2015 roadmap you had for both energy and healthcare, but if you can just go to the healthcare slide. Over the last 3 to 5 years, this market has been developing very, very rapidly. And if I look at this slide, I see like a map that's laid out for us to really get engaged by 2015, for Ericsson to get engaged by 2015. How do you anticipate Ericsson needing to adjust with market differences as it goes through 2015, because it's going to change along the period? And is there things that you would recommend along the path?
So I think one incentive for developers to use our solution and to wait this much time, as you put it, is that they're very frustrated right now. We already have a plethora of health apps that's really not innovative at all. They all advocate standard interoperability. We already have the HL7, but nobody is using it. So everyone has their own vision of how they're going to interface with the hospitals. If we let them know that that Ericsson is willing to assume that leadership, that integration role, to go and reach out the HL7, to go and reach mHealth Alliance, to reach out national instruments, that we were going to deliver a very solid SDK with experienced players, I think that they will be willing to line up and wait for our partners to deliver a very robust solution. So yes, it may take a long time, but I think it's a better alternative to the current status quo, which is fragmentation and frustration.
And also, I think it's worth saying that this is a very conservative roadmap. I mean, we're saying that it's going to take us 3 years to launch the SDK. We're doing that just as a precaution, but really, if we want to speed this up, I mean, this is something that it could start tomorrow. I mean, we don't have to wait for the technology. It's already here. It's just a matter of going fast and getting more people. So we could speed it up if we needed to.
Go back to that competitive slide in the healthcare. Did you guys look at Google and Microsoft Health Vault? Do you see them as players in this consolidated database?
The way that we see Google with their health solution, it's very intuitive, it's very easy to use, the interface is there. But the thing is, the relationship with HL7 is still not there. Surprisingly, it's still not there. So a lot of doctors, physicians, organizations, nonprofit organizations all around the world have come together to put this XML standard in place. Now, nobody's using it. We need to examine why is it that. And that's because none of the heavyweights is really willing to assume that role. Nobody has the incentive to do it. So when we're in a stage where not even Google is willing to take that step, I think it's that when we see that this opportunity to leverage and to assume that position where we can put all of these players together and make the most of it.
I have a question on the value flow in the first part of the presentation. Could you please elaborate a bit more? The users will pay less in the system, so it's less money flowing around, and still you're pointing out a lot of savings. Could you please elaborate the money flow then from that?
All right. So what I was explaining here is that users, yes, they are going to spend less money, and that could look like it's like a lesser cash stream. But what happens is that utility companies, surprisingly, and unlike many other businesses, are also interested in this kind of savings. What's happening here is that utility companies are seeing this more, not as much in the short term, but in long term principles, because the actual greatest fear in the utility company landscape, and the reason why ENERNOC has been so successful in selling this kind of solutions to these companies, is that they actually have to plan with a lot of overheads on their capacities. So any savings in the let's say, any savings in the power usage, especially when it comes to flattening the curve, it allows them to be more efficient in allocating the resources and in not investing when they are not supposed to and when it doesn't really make sense to. So those are the kind of savings that can be measured by ENERNOC and by ourselves, because we know when these megawatts are not being used or are being used in a different way. And these are the things that we can tell the companies, well, if we are already making you able to not use this extra capacity and not having the risk of power shortages and not having to invest any longer, that's the money that we're saying that can be flown through. So I don't know if I... Right.
And another question on that. Can you quantify the amount in the home appliance makers?
Here?
Yes. Because what you're saying is that we need to put a cellular modem into every device.
Oh, right. Oh.
Okay, so what we see here, this is, like he said, this is a little looking into the long-term evolution, because we looked at estimates, and on average, a person will change his washing machine in 10 to 15 years. So the idea is that if in the short term we can get the OEMs to actually put their chips in all of their appliances, imagine that in 10 years, every single home appliance will have this chip, and ENERNOC will be able to control all of these appliances at once. Imagine the savings that can make. So the revenue here is from the revenue that comes to Ericsson through the home appliance makers is from the sales of the chips. Through our joint venture with ST Ericsson, we provide them the chips. That's the major playing that we have with Ericsson.
Thank you very much. The time is up.
Thank you.